Wow, Deborah, thank you. Thank you so much. You know, one of my best friends is named Winston. And it's not Winston Churchill, but it's Winston, my French bulldog. But him and Winston Churchill actually have one thing in common. They're both really robust. They're round. But I'm not too sure that if all of you know Winston Churchill actually gave one of the most infamous speeches in America. He showed up at a graduation commencement, I think it was like an hour late, and he got up, and this is all he said. Never, never, never give in, no matter how great or small, large or petty. Never, never give in. And he walked off. And I just love that because my message for you today is to never give in to challenges, never give in, never give up. So I want to share a little story with you. There was this little girl, and she had to make a lot of noise in this house. 4 girls. She calls herself the only child of 4 sisters. She had to make a lot of noise in this house to be heard, as you can only imagine. She was constantly comparing herself to her older sisters. One was a supermodel with Ford Model Agency. The other one was a famous wife. The other one was a valedictorian with a rockin' body. And I wanted everything that all of them had. And I've already blown it because that girl was me. On June 12th, 1994, my life changed forever, as it did for my family. We were thrust into immediate spotlight. Our private lives that we cherished were suddenly taken from us. All we focused on was the next minute, the next day, the next trial, just trying to get through all of it, day by day. And another focus of ours were Nicole's children. We wanted to create some sort of normalcy for these children as they grew up, and we were constantly thinking about their future. But the sad thing about it is that our private lives were gone. Now, David Letterman shared with Oprah not too long ago, he says, my life is like being on an elevator and the bottom drops out. And you know what? I, like David Letterman, had a life where the bottom dropped out. And David and I have something very much in common, if that made sense. We stuffed our feelings. We stuffed our emotions. We stuffed our angst, our anxiety, our stress, our depression. And we put on this happy face and we live behind a mask to show the world that life is great. Life is perfect. I'm from Southern Orange County, and you could just imagine a lot of people live life that way. But masking your feelings isn't easy. You know, there's a hole in the soul when you mask your feelings and you pretend everything is okay. And you try to fill that hole that is in your soul with drugs, with alcohol. Mine was food. I was an overeater and ate my feelings to make myself feel better. After the death of my sister, my family and myself lost our identity because it was formulated by the media. There were so many and such high expectations of us. We had to be the strong family. We had to be the family that smiled. All of a sudden, it was like, wait a second, we're simple Laguna Beach people who walk our dogs on the beach, even though they're not allowed at the time. We're normal. And then all of a sudden, we have these cameras, and then people think of us as celebrities in Hollywood. And it was really disgusting because there was a family behind all of this. But many of these expectations and stories I share, like Deborah said, I'm launching my new book here today. I share these stories in my book, Finding Peace Amid the Chaos, to share with people how important it is to face our stuff as it shows up, because if you don't, it can be too late. 10 years after Nicole's murder, it was a beautiful Saturday afternoon, and I'm smiling because I look back, and this is what my book will do to you if you choose to buy it. You will laugh because you're like, this is a wild and crazy ride. But 10 years after her murder, I almost took my own life. I lashed out at my entire family, called my sister horrific names, and I lost that relationship for 1 year. And then I resorted to my room, and I poured a bottle of Klonopin that I was on, and I was not taking them as prescribed. Had a bottle of wine in the other, and I wanted to call it a day. The next day, on October 10th, 2004, began a new journey. And it was an awesome journey, as scary as it was, but I checked myself into a psych ward in Laguna Beach. Now, don't get me wrong, this is an ocean view. You have no technology, you didn't have to wear makeup, you got the best therapy, but I did the work. I didn't sugarcoat anything. My therapists were hard on me, but I did the work. And that's what I'm challenging all of you to do. If you are struggling or battling with something, talk to somebody, get the help, and get real with yourself. Do the work. You know, depression really hit hard that day. It really hit hard. And back then, it was definitely something we didn't talk about. Still today, it's something we don't talk about. But I'm standing up in here, up in front of you. I don't know how many people are here. When I first walked in, I was like, oh my gosh. But you know what? I'm going to be bold. I'm going to be bold like Elizabeth, bold like Kristen, bold like, the women who were standing up here. I'm going to be bold. And I'm going to stand up here proudly and say, yeah, I almost took my own life. Yes, I was in depression. Yes, I still have daily struggles. And I am proud of that. Because it is when we can open up our feelings and our emotions, we become free. Thanks. Thank you. I heard numerous times here on the panel, and there was a commonality between everybody. Live authentically. Because when you live behind that mask and pretend that everything is okay, that stuff catches up with you. That's when the pill popping comes in. That's when the excessive and dysfunction behavior comes in. After 3 months of therapy, I learned to accept. You have to get to the point of acceptance and surrender in order to be healed. And I accepted the fact that I was sick. And I learned how to manage my depression day by day, and the tools, but more importantly, my support system. The gal who wrote the foreword for my book is an ex-LPGA golfer, and I was in the psych unit with her. And that support system, that was my family. My family was the inpatient, outpatient, sick people, but people like you and me. These aren't the homeless people sitting on the corner licking a light post talking to themselves. They are people like you and me. And from that experience, and I say it with a smile, it has allowed me to open up my heart even more, to really hold in and bring in the value, how important it is that each of us, especially women, how each of us can support each other. I've learned the value of that power. When we work collectively and support each other collectively, and even with our friends and our loved ones and our family, we become stronger people. But why is it that so many of us are too ashamed or shy or are scared to have that stigma behind them to say, I need help? Rather be on this side of the dirt than be 6 feet under. A day almost does not go by where I don't hear of an overdose or a suicide of some sort. This is very real. Last night, I almost thought that I was going to lose somebody I loved to an overdose. Why? Because they need to fill that hole in the soul. And we can do that in healthy ways. You know, each of us have a mental breaking point. Okay, my breaking point was, you can call it wigging out, flipping out, flying off the handle, she's losing it. You know what? I'm going to just tell you my saying. I snapped. I snapped, and thank God I snapped, because honestly, I would not be the person who I am today because I bottled up everything. Not just Nicole's tragedy, numerous life challenges, losses after loss after loss. I dedicate 2 chapters of my book to 2 of my best friends who were killed. But it took a decade, like Deborah was saying, for it to build up. And it literally took almost less than 2 minutes for it to come out. So let's turn this thing into a happy one. So who's Tanya today? Tanya has and still tries to create some sort of normalcy in her life, if you want to call it that. I literally live in chaos. So the title of my book is very fitting for my life. It is chaotic, but it's good because I want to be real with you, and I want to be candid, and I want to be as authentic as I can with each and every one of you and those who choose to read the story. But I was always keeping goals and dreams and passions alive in my life. And one of my big goals was to go to UCSD. But I fainted my first day of college. I was in the infirmary all day. And when I called my German mother, she was like, "How'd your day go?" And I said, "Well, Mom, I'm in the infirmary." She goes, "What's that?" And I said, "I fainted and I'm in the doctor's office." She goes, "That's it. My kid's getting through college alive and happy. You're coming home." And I said, "No." I said, "I am staying." I was hard-headed. But I ended up making the decision to leave because my depression was getting very deep and dark, and it was getting very real. Very real. But I turned it around, and in 2006, I graduated with my bachelor's in counseling psychology. I finally finished my graduate degree. Sean, Priscilla, Maggie, Deborah, you guys all walked me through that. It was hell in a handbasket. But you know what? I want to speak to each and every one of you and let you know that being depressed and the word depression is not a bad word. In fact, you know what? It's really okay. If there's anything you take out of this room today, it's okay to not be okay. Really. Stop living behind that mask. So I want to share some signs with you. Even though they differ, signs and symptoms differ between person to person when we're talking about depression. But here are just some simple ones. Do you sleep too much? Do you not sleep enough? Do you eat too much? Do you not eat enough? Have you lost interest in everyday activities? Have you lost track of your hygiene, getting out of the shower, putting on your makeup? Were you colorful at one time and then all of a sudden it's just been zapped from you? Are you or somebody you love that little wind-up doll that we see in the commercial? She eventually gets up, but she comes back down, right? So take some of those symptoms with you. But the commonality that each and every one of us who struggle with some sort of mental illness, anxiety is a mental illness, everybody. Doesn't matter on any level. We're not just talking bipolar, schizophrenia, and all the crazy ones. We're talking about simple stuff, but that can really lead into danger. So they can differ from person to person, but there's one thing that we all have in common, those who struggle, is that we always feel like we're going through this thing alone because there's a stigma to it, and nobody wants to admit it. And I encourage you, if you're sitting in this audience right now, I was about to say office, if you're sitting in this audience right now, please talk to somebody, because my story and my experiences and those that I hear every single day are very real. Very real. So in my book, Finding Peace Amid the Chaos, I share my personal journeys with you as much as I possibly can without getting in trouble by my oldest sisters. I share my journal entries with you during my hospitalization. I start each chapter out with a journal entry during that traumatic time. But most of all, and most importantly, I share with you the healing process to get you where you want to be. You want to be that happy and healthy person? Like Elizabeth said, you've got to make a choice. I was never a victim. I was never a patient. I was a student. I was a student of life. I knew that I did not want to walk out that same person. that came in. I wanted to be happy, and that's who I am. I have my hard days, and Elizabeth, thanks for sharing that. You have your hard days. I share in my book that, one day after an exam not too long ago, early last year, I wanted to drive my car through Pacific Coast Highway because I was so overwhelmed. I have my hard days, but the thing that is different, I have tools in my toolbox now because we each need tools. We're not taught coping skills in school, and you know what? That's going to be my advocacy because I think it's time we bring that stuff into school. But my motto and my philosophy in life is just to never give in, just like Winston Churchill has said. 19 years ago, in 20 years, this June, finally, wonderful things are beginning to happen. I've overcome many roadblocks. I've just touched the surface. Like I said, the book is a wild and crazy ride. Roadblock after roadblock, death after death, challenge after challenge, but I never lost focus of what I wanted to do. Help others. Bring out awareness on domestic violence, bring out awareness on mental health, bring awareness to mental illness, two distinct differences. I want to promote mental health to prevent mental illness. We need to talk about prevention. And you know what? I never gave up. And my mom, I think, who said it? I forgot her name. But in any event, her mom said, well, why do you want to give up a $30,000 job? My mom always said, why don't you just get a regular job? 80% of people aren't happy doing what they do anyway. And I said, I'm never going to be one of those people. Not going to be one of those people, Mom. ITT Tech said one time in an ad, and it just has stayed with me. It says, if you knew you were meant to do something in this life, do not let life stand in your way. We all have crises. Each and every single one of us, maybe on different levels, we each have them. But are you going to make that your identity? Or are you going to identify with it? Because if you make it your identity, there's going to be a problem. You're going to live an unhealthy, unhappy life, and you know what? Your whole self from head to toe will get lost, and that will become your new name. Do you want to give power to that experience? Do you want to give power to it? Or do you want to use it for yourself and for the good for other people, to lift people up, to live better and healthier lives? But ultimately, if you want your life to change, you have to make that choice. Never give up on your life. There are days where you just want to hide under that blanket. You want to wear your yellow ducky pajama bottoms. And yes, I have yellow ducky pajama bottoms. And you know what? Sometimes I don't want to get out of those because I do have my hard days. I know what it's like to want to die. I know what it's like to want to hide under a rock. I know what it's like to not want to be here, if not forever, but for a really, really long time. But today, I allow myself to experience emotions. I feel that stress. I feel that overwhelm. I don't hide it. I don't stuff it anymore. My loved ones who are close to me can attest, woo, Tanya's, let's keep her managed. But I feel it. And what we resist continues to persist. It continues to knock at our door. So what do? Sometimes I have thrown that shoe across the wall, not at a person, but sometimes I have thrown that shoe. And sometimes I have screamed in my car. Like my mother, before the Ritz-Carlton was built in Laguna, she goes, I miss my mountain. I just want to go on top of my mountain and scream. You've got to express those feelings and those emotions. And you know what? As cliche as it sounds, and you're going to hate me for saying this, but this too shall pass. Moments like that subside in just a few moments. So persevere through the storm. Believe me, I have had every excuse under the sky to not make my life work. Every excuse, whether it be fear of success, fear of failure, fear of not being liked, just fear overall. But I persevered through that storm. Never give in, never give up even when you're angry. Don't hold a grudge. At one time years ago, I was watching the Oscars and Ben Affleck, when he received his Oscar, and it totally shocked me because whoever would say this, but it was so awesome. He says, never hold a grudge. If you hold a grudge, it's only your own anger that you're choosing to hold on to. that you're not wanting to release. And that will only lead you to live a life of frustration. And that anger, frustration leads to resentment. And do you want to live a life of resentment? It leads you into a life of perpetual negative thinking. Don't allow these emotions to rule you. Face them, be open to them, but do not allow the negative thinking to run your life, even the negative situation. Never give up on your soul. Never give up on your soul. Cherish your soul. You know, as women, we're always rushing around. And Deborah, I don't do anything that you said on your list, your little checklist. I want that list. It's hard. We plow through life. We do. We do the best we can. We manage our time the best we can. We manage our energy the best we can. We exercise as much and as best we can. We do the best we can. But never give up on that soul of yours. How many of you here today actually take bubble baths and light a candle and listen to some Bocelli maybe? And how many of you dance like nobody's watching? How many of you can just laugh and smile really for no reason? These are things that feed our soul. Yes, we're busy. Yes, you have kids. I don't have kids. I got a French bulldog. Those are my kids. That's my baby. But we can get through life if we do something, if we tap into something each day, just a little bit, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, something a little bit every day that you truly enjoy that will break the cycle of the stress that you're under. So then you can enjoy the next moment. So then you go into the next moment with more calm, more resiliency, more peace, more gratitude. You know, this stuff doesn't come overnight. It takes work. It takes practice. These are skills, and skills need to be learned. But when you can learn how to nurture your soul, you actually can live in full abundance, and life can be really good, even in the dark times. Really, the only thing, actually, before I go into that, don't ever give up on your faith. Faith is the one thing that got me through all of it, whether it be Nicole, whether it be Harissa and Troy, my friends who are written in the book. You know, one time, shortly after Nicole's murder, we were always waking up at random parts in the evening, and I caught my mom at 3 o'clock in the morning, somewhere around that time, and she was reading this letter. And I go, Mom, are you all right? And she goes, we're not religious people, are we? I mean, this lady was throwing in scriptures and things like that, and I grew up Catholic, and I go, Mom, we may not know the Bible front and back by heart. I said, but we believe in God, and we're very spiritual. We have faith, and that is the one thing that will get you through anything. So if you don't have a faith in something, find it, the God of this bouquet, something higher than yourself, because I'm telling you, once you can find that, that is your rock. That is the one thing that you can truly rely on. Thank you. You know, we're all scared, like what I said. You know, a man who I've known since I was 7 years old killed my sister. I was left at the altar 4 days before my wedding, and yes, that was the straw that broke the camel's back to my psychiatric experience. And I also fell into an emotionally controlling, abusive relationship. Yes, I'm scared. But making excuses and giving them the power for me to do nothing, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to move forward in my life, step by step. I don't know what comes out of today. I don't know. I live right now. And you know what? I really have let worry go. Because you know what? Really? You have right now, right this minute. So if you're already thinking about your little to-do list when you leave today, try to be more present. Bring that back. Thank you so much for listening today.